You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report. We are so happy to have you with us. Today is November 25th, 2024. It's a Monday, so it's another day for the Central Indiana Sports Report. I'm your host, Greg Mengel, and with me today is Michelle Garmon. And we, by the way, both love Central Indiana girls basketball.
Yes, we do.
Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Greg. It's always a pleasure to be here.
And welcome to all the listeners to our Girls Basketball Week in Review for November 18th through 23rd, although we might talk a little bit about what happened on the 25th, which is when we're broadcasting this today. So typically it goes from Monday to Saturday, but there aren't usually very many Monday games. So
No, there really aren't. And I know as a coach, I always hated to play on a Monday night. And when especially when I coached the Tipton girls freshman team, it seemed like that's when most of my TV games sometimes were on Mondays. So, but
yeah.
I hate Monday night games. I mean, I always hated Monday night games, especially road games. But there was no hex on those Elwood Panthers tonight. That's a good thing.
No, the Elwood Panthers girls basketball team are 6-0. We will talk to Elwood head coach Courtney Licklider. I did that earlier tonight. Also, we will have Kokomo head coach Haley Peckinpah. They're off to a 5-0 start. Yorktown head coach Leanne Bargy and Tipton head coach Leela Gilman. After our reviews and our weekly honors and our power poll, the Herald-Bulletin's Rob Hunt joins us to talk about how good the start of the season has been in Madison County. We released our boys basketball season previews for Alexandria, Elwood, Frankton, Madison, Grant, and Tri-Central will be coming up in just a few. You probably, by the way, it's probably available by the time you're listening to this. And then we will have our CIC boys basketball preview for your Thanksgiving Day traveling pleasure. All right, we start our girls basketball week in review with the CIC. You know why, Michelle?
Because they were so kind to name their conference after your sports podcast.
That's right. They were so nice to do that. Thank you. And we'll go from best record to worst. And that makes us begin with the Alexandria Tigers. Alexandria is ranked 7th in Class 2A and improved to 6-0 with a 53-43 win at Yorktown on Thursday. The Alexandria Tigers trailed 10-8 at the end of the first before taking control by outscoring Alexandria 21-8 in the second quarter.
Outscoring Yorktown.
Yorktown, yep, sorry.
Okay.
It's the Alexandria Tigers' second 6-0 start in the last 4 years, but just their second since they won their first 22 games in the 2002-03 season. They go to Anderson to face 6-2 Anderson Prep on Tuesday. Then they host LaPel on Wednesday in a big one that's probably been circled on Alexandria's schedule for since probably the schedule came out.
It probably has. I will say this. I know a key for Alexandria. I think you, Rob, and I talked about this before on an earlier podcast about they have Jacqueline Hosier,
Yep.
Coach Mickey Hosier's daughter. She's a senior. She scored over 1,000 points. Keeps adding to that total. She's one of the best scoring guards in the state. And point guard, she'll go to Vermont and kind of be a combo guard. She's already signed her letter to continue her basketball career for the Catamounts. And that is right, correct? Vermont Catamounts?
Yes, that is correct.
That's what I thought. I remember that because I think it's kind of a catchy name. So
It is great.
yeah. But a key is finding secondary scoring and different things, and just following along the Twitter feed or X the feed on X from the other night in that Yorktown game, I really think that they found some help with her. I mean, Lily Harp had a good game. They had a player, I don't have the roster in front of me, so I can't think, but they had one or two girls step up and hit couple big threes for them. It wasn't just Jack. And, for Alec to, uh, accomplish what they want to accomplish this season, it can't just be Jack. And,
That's correct. By the way, Lapel's beaten Alexandria 6 straight times and the last 2 postseasons.
well, I'm going to say this, having watched LaPel and Frankton on, Friday night, I will say this. I think the pressure that Alexandria can put on with their press and that full court and all of that, I really think it's going to give LaPel, I think it's going to give them fits. And I think LaPel is probably going to have Lanaya Wills come back and really help to beat that pressure. And if that's the case, then that kind of takes her away from the basket, and it makes it easier, I think, on Alec to be able to guard her. She can't, because if she has to help bring the ball, she's going to give it up, and she's going to go post, which, Alec will be set up on defense, and I think it's easy. I think it's harder sometimes to establish really good post position if you are against a team that's, already set up with their defense. And I know she can come out to the wing. I think I think early in early in the season. I mean, I won't count LaPel out. I
No.
just think that Alexandria has experienced all the guards because their guard play is so strong. Guard and wings. I think I give the nod to Alexandria early. These two teams could very well meet again in the Madison County tournament, and and that's probably it, unless LaPel, they would meet either in the regional or the semi-state, because they are no longer in the same girls basketball sectional.
Right. But they could meet down the road. You never know.
No, yeah, you're right. You don't know down the road. Um, that sectional is going to be tough for LaPel. That sectional 39
Yes.
is not going to be easy, because with Sheridan sitting in there, that Sheridan team is pretty good itself, and they also have a couple of. I mean, they also have an outstanding player in Kinsey Gardner to match up with Wills, so that could be very interesting.
All right,
So,
Elwood improved to 5-0 with a 43-42 win at Southwood on Saturday. By the way, they're now 6-0 after beating Cowan 37-24 on Monday evening. First time since 2004 when they won a sectional that year. The program's second sectional championship ever. The last time they started 6-0. Monday's win wasn't pretty, but like I said, 6 in a row. The 6 win surpasses the last 3 season win total.
it's 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 great for Elwood. I mean, and again, give Coach Licklider and her team credit for going out there and finishing last year. There were some of these games, especially with the Cowan game, because I was there. It was at Elwood. It was a game they should have won, and they could not finish it. And there were a couple of those games. They were young and not experienced. They couldn't finish it. But then also as I said before, give Ryan Van Skyok, the athletic director, a lot of credit, because he's juggled that schedule. And I know they've played a lot here early of games, but he's juggled that schedule to where Elwood could come out and have early success if they took advantage of it, and they did. And they've had early success, which builds confidence and excitement in your program, and which is a great thing to have, because their schedule is going to get tougher. And once they
Yes,
start
it is.
CIC play, which I think Oak Hill is their first CIC opponent, is going to get really tough.
Guess when it starts getting tougher.
Tuesday night, tomorrow night, when they
That is
host
correct.
Marion.
That is correct. Only their second home game of the season, by the way, against 2-3 Marion on Tuesday. Here is my conversation earlier Monday night with head coach Courtney Licklider. By the way, we will have senior Kendra Salee and sophomore Breland Norris on Tuesday's girls basketball scoreboard segment. All right, Coach, let's start with the fact that you're 6-0. Pretty incredible.
It is. I'm really proud of the girls because, it hasn't been a perfect play, and so that's what's really impressive is that we're young and we've still made a ton of mistakes, but that's the difference between this year and last year is that those mistakes cost us. Last year we were up 6 points with 3 minutes to go. And ended up losing against Cowan. And so it's been really nice to see the growth in that area of the game.
And 2 games in a row where you really had to get some good play down the stretch in order to win the game.
Yeah, just trying to get them to understand possession and how important it is, and that when you have a lead, I said it wasn't technically a stall, but it should have been a delay. When they're in a zone and you have an 8-point lead, you're not hunting shots. You're at this point you're clock managing, but you're going to take open shots if you have them. But so it's just kind of getting them to understand those little nuances of the game.
Really nice to have a player or two who is comfortable with the ball in their hands in that situation, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And, I put a lot of pressure on Breland. She's just a sophomore. But the nice thing about her is that she wants it. She wants to be coached hard. She wants to learn. She wants to get better. And so that's awesome. And then with a senior like Kendra, who is providing leadership on and off the court, they're my 2 captains, and they've been doing a great job so far.
Oak Hill improved to 4-0 on the season with a 58-14 win over Madison Grant. On Friday, it was the first time the Golden Eagles started 4-0 in a season in 7 years. Then the following night, they suffered their first loss of the year, 54-34 at Norwell. Senior Liz Godfrey had 28 points and was 10 for 20 shooting for the week. Sophomore Landry Hardman had a big week with 16 points, 14 assists, and 10 steals. The Eagles go to Southwood to face 2-2. The 2-2 Knights on Tuesday before hosting 2-4 Manchester on Saturday.
Oak Hill will get a chance. They're gonna bounce back the next 2. No, there's no shame in that loss to Norwell. Norwell took out top-ranked Hamilton Heights last year in the semi-state. I think it was regional because regional was back. No, semi-state, right? They took them out last year in the postseason. Let's just put it that way. Since they flip that way, they keep changing the postseason around.
That's right.
Remember, is it 14 regionals, 1 team semi-state? But no, I think it's now 1 game regionals and
it
2 games. Yeah, so it makes it hard for me to keep track. But
it is
Norwell
hard to keep track.
Got Hamilton Heights out of the postseason last year. They pulled off the upset. That's a really good Norwell team. Yeah. I know they probably lost some players, but that's still a good Norwell team. Because somebody told me, was at that game, they had told me that they thought Norwell, their best players last year were juniors, like sophomores and juniors. So, really good team.
That's right. All right, Frankton took a hard-fought loss against rival Lapel on Frankton. The Eagles lost 53-45 after really being in the game for most of the contest, right, Michelle?
Oh, they were. I mean, Frankton couldn't have asked for a better first quarter and really nice first half. I think halftime was the worst thing that happened to Frankton because their shooting fell off really fell off in the second half, and they came out hot, cooled off slightly in the second quarter, but it cooled off even more after halftime, and they were playing well, and then Lapel just came up with a string of 3 big plays that turned that game in the final couple minutes of that fourth quarter to open up a lead. But it was back and forth all night. It's what you would expect out of two county, or actually not just county. I mean, these are 2. They're school corporation rules. These are 2 backyard rivals. It's kind of like Lapel and Frankton are like Fishers and Hamilton Southeastern, just the 2A Class 2A version. And but Frankton,
by the way,
great game.
Yeah, they rebounded. They beat Newcastle 47-44 on Saturday. Sophia Hoagland at 18 points and 10 rebounds. Like the night after, you said they needed bigger performances from her. She came through with 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 block shots.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sophia Hoagland is the key. I think they, I said that needed more. I think they needed to be able to find ways to feature her a little bit more in that offense. Emma Kia is outstanding. The Dietzer girl is really can hit some threes, and Curtis battles inside on the boards. But Hoagland is, she is the player that makes me think most of Emma Sperry, and she's not quite as good as what Emma was, a year ago, but she is athletic. Um, she's a good player. She just needs to become more aggressive, and it sounds like she was on Saturday. And if they can get that, if Frankton can get that production from Hoagland to go with Key's production, and then the complementary pieces of Dietzer and Curtis and Laney Hamaker, that Frankton, they're gonna have a really good season. They're gonna end up having a good season.
Frankton hosts 4-2 Shenandoah on Friday in its only game of Thanksgiving week. I spoke to Frankton head coach Jeff Bates on Sunday's girls basketball scoreboard show. That's segment 98.1. Go back and find that one. Defending CIC co-champion Eastbrook dropped its third straight game Monday with a 57-32 loss before snapping the skid with a 62-28 win over Taylor on Saturday. Senior Mia Bustos led the way in the win, going 10 for 12 with 21 points, 18 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. Panthers have this week off before going to 2-2 Southwood next Wednesday. Then they go to Mississinawa for their first conference game next Friday. The Indians are 1-5. We also spoke to Eastbrook head coach Alicia Griffin on Sunday's girls basketball scoreboard show.
Uh-huh.
Blackford it fell to 1-5 after losses to Adams Central and Muncie Central last week. The Bruins lost 49-23 at home to Adams Central before a 49-8 defeat at Muncie Central. The Bruins were led by sophomore Addison Sargent and senior Adriana Hall, who scored 6 points apiece in the loss to Adams Central. Through 5 games, Blackford is led by junior Riley Heiser, who's averaging 7.4 points and 5.8 rebounds. Freshman Gracie Townsend is averaging 7 points and 5 steals a game. Blackford has the holiday week off before going to Bluffton a week from Thursday. Bluffton is 5-1. That's not going to get any easier for them.
No, and it's not surprising to see Blackford and Eastbrook struggle beginning. They both graduated a lot from their successful teams the last few years. And, it takes a while, and with new coaches and new, different players. So, big key for them is just to keep their sights on just getting better every day in practice and each game night.
Mississinawa dropped a pair of games, 60-24 at home against said Bluffton Tuesday and 40-23 at Lures on Saturday. They are now 1-5 on the season, have dropped 5 in a row.
Well,
Mississinawa doesn't. Go ahead.
I was going to say Mississinawa, they're a 3A school, and Lures and Bluffton aren't slouches.
No, they
So,
are not.
and so, they're playing a tough schedule. I look forward to kind of seeing what they do against the conference teams.
They don't play again until a week from Friday when they host Eastbrook. We had Action Sports Network's Kevin Helfrich on Sunday's girls basketball scoreboard. By the way, if you like girls basketball and you haven't listened to that, you probably need to go back and listen to it. He called the Mississinawa Lures game the other day and had a report. Playing shorthanded, Madison Grant dropped a pair of tough road games, 72-20 at Marion on Tuesday, and 58-14 at then unbeaten Oak Hill on Friday. Senior Marley Neiman had her best week of the season for the Argyles with 8 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 steals for the week. Madison Grant faces 4-1 Wabash on Saturday. It appears that point guard Jasmine Rainey will be out for that one. She should return December 3rd at home against Tri-Central.
Well, they're going to need her. It's it's a team that they're going to struggle because until they get healthy, trying to find consistent point production and everything, and they're kind of having to do their offense handling pressure duties point guard by committee, meaning it's going to be a team thing, and that's you could do that. I mean, to break good presses, it takes a team. It's really hard to dribble all the way through good presses, but it's nice to have a point guard that can sit there and point you in different directions. And I know they miss Rainey with that, and it's just experience. Madison Grant, as their season progresses and they get more experience, as long as they don't get overly frustrated and keep listening and buying into what Coach Martin is telling them, and I think he does a great job. I really like what Coach Martin does as far as not only preparing the ladies for and making them better basketball players, but preparing them for life, as it goes on, because after high school and in the future, and making them better, just young ladies, just better young ladies.
Coach Martin is the best. Let's go to the North Central Conference. Kokomo appears to be headed back to its glory days, or at least in that direction. The Wildcats improved to 5-0 with wins over Lewis Cass and Fort Wayne South last week. It started with a 49-34 victory over Cass at home. Again, Cass was unbeaten going into that game. Kokomo held the Kings to 35% shooting and forced 20 turnovers. The Wildcats had another standout defensive performance in the 63-23 win over South on Saturday. They held the Archers to 16.7% shooting and forced 24 more turnovers. Kokomo's 5-0 for the first time since it started 14-0 in 2009-10.
Yeah, Haley, who was a really good guard for Hamilton Heights, Haley Cook, is doing a nice job over there with that Kokomo program. It's you know she's come in and taken it in, and it's been it's a program that's went through some coaches, and and not in a bad way, but it needed a culture change, and I think some coaches had tried the culture change, but I think they finally got one in Cook, who has been able, and Haley, who's been able to do it. And I will say this: think about it. How could you not? Think about the basketball knowledge and the basketball discussions that take place in the Peck and Paul household. Folks, her husband is the head coach of the boys basketball team, and her father-in-law was a head coach. So I imagine there are some great basketball discussions that go on, even at family get-togethers and things like that. I'm sure they share a lot. Her her husband's at the girls' games supporting her. Watching. She's at the men's game or the boys' games supporting her husband. You get to see a lot. And um, uh, find me a better husband wife coaching duo right now in the state that one coaches the girls and one coaches the boys.
And here's my conversation with Haley Peckinpah earlier Monday. Coach Haley Peckinpah of the Kokomo Wildcats, thank you for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report. How has your team been able to find a way to get to 5-0, Coach?
I think just by, definitely, honestly, in my opinion, just by playing really hard. I think that our motto this year has just been to buy in and play hard. And, even if you're not more talented than the other team, you're still going to have a shot if you play really hard. And that's kind of just been how we've been playing. And we're just going to continue that as long as we can and try to play harder than our opponents.
Just looking at box scores every night, it seems like you have a ton of offensive options and outstanding team defense.
Yeah, no, I think we have a lot of different weapons this year. It's really, really fun to watch. We also have really focused on our pressure defense in the full court and in the half court. And I think that, having a lot of help side and, pressure means you're going to get beat sometimes, but just making sure you're there to help each other. Those have been two key components to us winning games.
I would ask you to name your top performers, but you'd keep talking for a little while, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. I think, I think it would take a while to name them all because I think we have, quite a few kids that at any point could step up. We've had obviously Michaela Drake has been our leading scorer most of the games. I think she's averaging close to 15 a game, but, every night we have multiple kids in double digits, multiple kids with 8 or 9, who can all really, put the ball in the basket.
What do you want to see from your team, not necessarily for the rest of the season, but through November into December?
I want to see like a competitive edge at practice. I think we've really been trying to compete at practice and make each other better. And I really want to just see that continue. I think that's what's helping us right now is just they're competitive in practice. And they're not taking it easy on each other, which is what we need. At the end of the day, if we don't push each other in practice, we're not going to get better. We have a tough stretch coming up here with Anderson, Zionsville, and Lafayette Jeff. And I just think if we can, push through adversity and compete, we can definitely, do what it takes to try to get some wins in those games.
Michelle, this year's Kokomo team probably isn't headed back to the great days of the great Kokomo Wildcats teams, but it looks like the program's headed back in that direction at least.
Yeah, it is. And, of course I remember those teams vividly. I was there. I watched the teams of the 90s with
I remember.
Tiffany Longworth, Mystina Oliver, Carrie Stovers, Carrie Richards now, Debbie Benzinger, Jessica, I think it was Rush, and now, what is her? I can't remember her married name now, but she has a outstanding daughter that played and down for university and everything, Thompson, I believe. And, it's, they had some great players. And then, even again later, but yeah, you have to start somewhere. And, Haley has done a nice job. They're progressively getting better each season that she's at the helm. So,
And still a pretty young team.
yes, they are. And I think she's doing a good job of, maybe going down and kind of rejuvenating the, younger grades too.
Muncie Central suffered a 45-21 loss at Newcastle on Friday, which is kind of strange because Frankton then beat Newcastle and Central beat Frankton before rebounding to beat Blackford 49-8. The Bearcats have won 3 of their last 4 and are now 3-3 after starting 0-6 last year against the same schedule. Central is now 1-0 in the North Central Conference and goes to Richmond for a noon tip Saturday. The Red Devils are 2-4 and 1-0 in the conference.
Yeah, when it comes like Muncie Central and Richmond in the NCC the last years, I mean, it's just finding some consistency, and it makes me wonder if Muncie Central overlooked Newcastle. People were telling me Newcastle was not very good,
Right.
but yet they beat Muncie Central, and Frankton only beat them by 3.
Yes.
At Frankton. So they have gotten better. Maybe somebody's gotten healthy or, maybe they found a player that is surprised that, there's always a surprise usually sometimes in a team that's struggling. A player might come in and you might give them a chance and they run with it and it changes the complexion of your team.
It
And,
all happened within 3 days.
I mean, you don't know. I mean, you really don't. I mean, you don't know. Maybe
That's the
somebody
point
was
when
not
it's
healthy. I mean, was not 100% healthy.
when it's 2 months down the season, you expect those kinds of things, but when it's the same week, It's not
I know,
exactly.
but stranger
Yes,
things can happen.
that's why they play the games.
It
Marion
is.
Marion is 2-3 after Tuesday's 72-20 win over Madison Grant. The Giants were led by freshman Naomi Hahn again. She went over 20 points for the second straight game with 24 points. Fellow freshman Jaylee Townsend added 16. Marion goes to Elwood on Tuesday to face the unbeaten Panthers.
I would say, I think Marion will probably pick up that win. I think Elwood is going to have trouble with Marion's athleticism.
It will say a lot if Elwood is competitive in that game.
Yes, it will say a lot if Elwood is competitive in that game.
And I believe the Marion Giants are on their way back to being a lot better as well. They are loaded with freshmen.
Yeah, and that that's a that's a good thing. That's a good thing to see. And I mean, you love them, hate them, or whatever, because they're a big school. If you're a little county school, but there's just some schools I think that if they're good in high school basketball, it's good. It's good for their cities. It's good for their communities, and I think it's a better school environment. And Marion is one of those.
Oh, I always loved the Marion Giants, and I always loved going to basketball games at Marion. Great place to
Yeah,
go.
and at Bill Green Arena is it's a nice arena.
Yes, amazing. One of my top five for sure. All right, let's go to the Hoosier Heritage. Delta suffered. Delta started the week with a 48-36 win at Newcastle on Tuesday to kick off the Hoosier Heritage slate with a win to improve to 4-1 overall. However, the Eagles took their second loss of the season with a tough 44-42 home loss to county rival Wapahani on Friday. Juniors Jillian Barr and Griffin Knight combined for 48 points, 29 rebounds, 15 assists, and 23 steals in 2 games. Delta goes to Yorktown on Tuesday. That's not a rivalry, is it?
Oh no, not at all.
Not at all. Yorktown, of course, we've already mentioned. I guess we haven't. Yorktown is 2-2. Pendleton Heights was 0-2 last week with two very tough losses. First on Wednesday, they led number 1 and defending state champion Lawrence Central for most of the first half before being completely dominated in the second half by the Bears, who went on 10-0 and 14-2 runs in the fourth quarter. Then they
Well,
took
Florida Central's loaded with talent.
yes, they are, top to bottom. That is not just one player doing that.
No, it's not.
Then they took a heartbreaking 60-59 loss when they led throughout and couldn't hold on at the end against Greenfield Central in a conference game. Senior Casey Wolfel had 39 points, 12 rebounds, 9 steals, and 5 assists for the week. After Monday's game against Chittard, the Arabians face 1-3 Jennings County at a Brownsburg shootout on Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Yorktown went 1-1 for the second straight week, beating Winchester 46-42. Winchester's first loss of the year. That was on Tuesday. Then they lost to Alexandria 54-43 on Thursday. In the win over Winchester, sophomore Alexis Fields had 13 points and 8 rebounds, and sophomore Maya Hargraves had 8 points and 10 rebounds. Sophomore Olivia Conklin had a huge game against Alexandria with a career best 18 points.
What I was going to say, I want to stop, and I know this is Yorktown basketball, but I want to take a brief moment to give a congratulations shout out to Charlotte Vincent, who was named as
Absolutely.
volleyball for the state of Indiana. What a tremendous season for her. I know you and we've talked about this before. It didn't even look like I mean, her life was in danger. I wasn't even knowing she was going to even be able to play volleyball again. And then to come out and have the season she did and lead the Tigers to the state runner-up finish. And, it's great to see her getting this volleyball. And the great thing is people around here, you get to continue to watch her if you want, because she's going to continue her career down in Bloomington in Indiana. So, hey,
I'm
that'll be,
happy to have her here, stay here in the state.
yes.
The Tigers host 4-2 Delta on Tuesday. Are these teams rivals at all? The Eagles and Tigers played twice last year and split the two games. Yorktown won 46-30 in the regular season. Delta won 49-33 in the Delaware County Championship. I spoke with Yorktown head coach Leanne Bargy earlier Monday evening about her team's start to the season.
Welcome to the Central Indiana Sports Report. Yorktown head coach Leanne Bargy. Thank you, Coach, for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, tell me about your team. Off to a pretty good start this season. It looks like it's a talented team you have.
Yeah, I think we are. We do have a lot of youth. I have one senior, Claire Hazen, and then I have a junior. I have more than one junior, but I have a junior that plays quite a bit, and then the rest are sophomore and freshmen. We are 2-2. Unfortunately, the second game of the season, Lily, my leading scorer from last year, Sylvester, she got a concussion.
Oh
So
no.
she is she's getting back. She's starting to practice and whatnot. So that'll help. Because that forced a freshman and a sophomore to handle the backcourt. So it was great for them. Great learning experience. But unfortunately sometimes, they're put in positions that they're not ready for, but they handled it pretty good. So
Who on your team maybe has stepped up or took a jump to another level or impressed you more than you thought early in the year and really stood out to you?
Well, the first thought that comes to mind would be Maya Hargraves. She played in every game last year. Not a lot of minutes, but she got in every game. She is a soccer goalie and she's very good at it. And so she's playing back. She decided to play basketball for us. So this is her second season, and
Mm.
she's starting. She's really starting to come along. Defensively and rebounding, that's what she loves. She loves to rebound. So now we're just trying to get her to be a little bit more offensive minded. But I think she stepped up so far this year. And Alexis Field, she is a sophomore. She's our 6 foot center. And I think she's the first part of the season, first 4 games, she's played really well as well. So those two come to mind pretty quickly.
All right, to the Hoosier Conference. Western won its only game of the week, 63-26 over Tipton at home to improve to 2-2 on the season. Elise Walden, Ella Rawlings, and Rihanna Brown have been the trio all year for the Panthers. They combined for 47 points in the win. Walden 17, Rawlings 16, Brown 14. The Panthers have a week off before back-to-back road games at 5-1 Carroll on December 5th and 4-1 Oak Hill on December 7th. Western is 2-0 at home and 0-2 on the road. Carroll, by the way, is ranked 17th in Class A.
Yeah, good challenges for Western. They got to find a way to win away from home. They look pretty good in their 2 home wins. Uh, you know, um, they are under a new coach as well because Mystina Oliver took over for Lisa Shepard and finished, I think, and did it for like a couple years, maybe 2.5 years. Um, and then, but when she took it, Mystina said that she was only going to do it for this, amount of time, which was kind of nice because that allowed, I think, Western to kind of have a plan in place for when she was going to leave. And, but, yeah, so those will be two good challenges for Western, coming up. It'll be now Carroll's built some tradition there, and then of course Oak Hill is pretty good this year. So good
Yep.
good matchups for Western.
Speaking of Tipton, they went 0-2 with losses to Northwestern and Western. The Blue Devils have lost 6 straight heading into this week, which they have off. Tipton is back in action at home December 4th against winless Taylor.
Personally, I think this break is can be a very good break for Tipton. They they still have a lot of things they need to work on and clean up. But yes, they opened with Eastern, and then their schedule early on. I mean, Winchester, Western. No, I think they'd like to have done a little bit better against Northwestern, but Northwestern has a really good guard in Ann Bashir, and they have some talent in that program. So, it's tough. I think Tipton, I'm going to guess that Coach Gilman and her staff will give the kids some days a little bit of time off this week. She'll probably have some volunteer shoot arounds, and then some practices. Uh, I hope that if their players are in town, they take advantage of those volunteer shoot arounds or open gyms that she has and to go in and not just to necessarily shoot, but if you do, make sure it's game speed and just to work on some fundamentals. You can pick up 2 basketballs and do some ball handling drills and stuff. And I think that's the nice thing about when you're Tipton and you're going to struggle and you have like a week off is you can spend or more than a week, you can spend a lot of those days working on fundamentals, and then the final 2 days preparing for, say, Taylor on Wednesday for their game against Taylor. Tipton should have won that game last year. They had a nice lead at Taylor, couldn't put it away. The Harris girl from just uh, just was phenomenal. I mean, came up with steals, and then Tipton just had some silly turnovers. They just when Taylor was able to speed them up and Tipton did not handle it well, but had a bunch of freshmen out there, so it'll be interesting. Taylor's a game I think Tipton really needs to win. I think for the girls, for their confidence and to keep excitement going. And it's when you looked at their schedule at the beginning of the season, there were probably 5 to 6 games you thought that they had a chance at winning. So it'd be nice if they could, get those wins.
Welcome back to the Central Indiana Sports Report. Tipton head coach Leela Gilman. Coach, tell us about the progress of your team this week. I know wins have been hard to come by, but what have you seen that you've liked?
Yeah, we had a good 2 weeks or 2 games this week. We played Northwestern and Western. Um, One thing that we're really focusing on is playing hard throughout the entire game. We struggled this week coming out a little flat in both games, so we're making sure that we make that an emphasis going forward, to come ready to compete as soon as we step out on the court. I think that after we adjusted and talked about some things, they started to play with a little more intensity in those games. So I think going forward, we're going to keep pushing forward and keep moving forward, focusing on coming out from the jump, ready to go for sure. I think that we had a better emphasis on playing as a team this week, and we did some really good things. Had a couple assists this week some girls had some good numbers with that. So excited for the future, but we know that we got to keep working hard and keep building this program up.
All right, Coach, who are 2 or 3 players who have stood out to you this week with their development or their effort or whatever?
Yeah, Michaela Shinlob had a couple really good games this week, really buying into our philosophies, listening and being a sponge, really working on getting her feet set so that she can have the best shot, buying in on the defensive end, and just working through being one of the best players on the floor. Another one that has had a good week is Mackenzie Farinella, and we look to her to help us and be a leader for us every game. And she's been really taking it upon herself to give everything she's got every time she steps out on the court. She's our big scorer. She does a lot of things for us, handles the ball, handles a lot of pressure, and she's developing and growing so much this year. So really proud of her effort over the last week as well.
Tri-Central improved to 2-2 on the season by winning their conference opener 46-30 at Taylor on Friday, then lost at home 65-30 to Tri-County on Saturday. They have 10 days off before going to Madison Grant on December 3rd and hosting Westell on December 4th.
Yeah, Matt Korn said on Friday about Friday's game that Lady Trojans kind of started a little slow in the first half, but picked things up and played well in the second half. And then he said Saturday they just did not come out ready to play, and though they played a little bit better, they just did not play very well at all on Saturday, and that or played a little bit better in the second half, but overall they didn't play very well. He is looking forward to getting healthy. He said they should have some players come back after Thanksgiving, so this break for them it comes at a great time. Logan Creason played pretty well. Olivia Dempsey had a pretty good played pretty well also, especially over the weekend for them. But they need more experience, a little bit to get help. They just need to get healthy. When Olivia's twin sister Angela comes back, I know that will really help them in the backcourt. It gives them two, guards, and then I can't remember who the other player is out, but getting healthy will be paramount for the Trojans.
Taylor's 0-5 after back-to-back losses Friday and Saturday to Tri-Central on Friday, 46-30, to fall to 0-2 in conference, and then 62-28 at Eastbrook on Saturday. Eastern is 0-6 in the first year under head coach Sarah Murphy. The Comets played arguably their best two games of the season last week, Friday and Saturday, and a 52-37 loss against 2-1 Rossville, and a 53-43 loss at 6-2 Anderson Prep on Saturday. The Comets are off until December 4th when they host 2-4 Manchester.
Yeah, Sarah, for Sarah, this break again will help her for the same reasons. She'll be able to work with the team on fundamentals and concentrating on them. I mean, and she knows that Eastern's at a stage where they really need to spend a lot of time on themselves. I think Sarah's doing a wonderful job, and she will do a wonderful job with that program. I mean, she's already she's coached down at the junior high level with her daughters, and she's big into building a feeder system, and that becomes paramount to your program. I would just tell Comets, their fans, you got to be patient. You have to give coaches time and don't expect too much out of that, because Eastern lost some players. They graduated the Yoda girl and one of the guards, and one of their better players for for Eastern this year. She didn't play last year as a junior. She's back out as a senior, so she's lost a whole year. So I think Sarah's got them heading in the right direction. Um, you know, I I look forward to seeing what she builds at Eastern.
To the Mid-Eastern Conference, Wapahani had a big win Friday, 44-42 over Delta. Then improved to 2-0 in the Mid-Eastern Conference with a 48-40 win over Daleville. In the win over Delta, senior Kimber Abshir and juniors Emily Luce and Megan Luce combined for 35 of the Raiders' 44 points. And then senior Julie Dargo went 9 for 12 from the field and 4 for 7 from behind the three-point arc for 22 points in Saturday's win over Daleville. On Monday, which is this week, not last week, but still I'm going to tell you, the Raiders beat Westell 83-10. Wapahani has perhaps its biggest conference game of the year Saturday when it hosts 6-0 and 5th-ranked Eastern Hancock. This should be a good one.
Yeah, I think Eastern. I think Eastern Hancock will win that probably pretty. I think they'll win that. I think they'll control it probably from start to finish.
Seems like the most
I do
likely
think
outcome.
Wapahani is better than they've been.
Yeah,
Problem is right now, a couple of the teams they're playing are not going to be at close to Eastern Hancock's level, so it'll be kind of hard
that
to
is correct.
adjust.
That is correct. Daleville dropped 2 tough ones last week to fall to 3-4. First, They were beaten 48-45 at Knightstown before the 48-40 loss at home to Wapahani on Saturday. They're now 0-2 in conference play. Daleville has 11 days off before another conference contest at Randolph Southern on December 4th. Cowan went 0-2 last week overall and in the conference with a 61-28 loss at Randolph Southern and a 64-12 loss at home against Eastern Hancock. Senior Madison Norris led the Blackhawks with 9 points in the loss to Randolph Southern. And sophomore Savannah Hall had 5 points, 8 rebounds, 5 steals, and 3 assists. The Blackhawks are now 1-7 after Monday's loss to Elwood, and has a full week off before they go to 1-4 Union on Tuesday, December 3rd. Almost done with the reviews. Anderson Prep won their 4th and 5th straight game last week. They're now 6-2 on the year. The Jets won 55-28 over Indiana Def on Tuesday, then beat Eastern 53-43 at home on Saturday. They will try to improve their winning streak on Tuesday at home against unbeaten Alexandria, which is ranked 7th in Class 2A. Don't think that's happening.
I don't think so either.
Burris, after an 0-5 start, Burris picked up its first win of the year, 48-27 at Westell on Friday. And our Independents, Lapel, after a 1-3 start, Class 2A number 12 Lapel had a pair of big wins last week. First, they beat Hamilton Heights 60-16, and then beat Frankton 53-45. Junior Lanaya Wills had 29 points in each game and averaged 15 rebounds, 3 steals for the week. Junior Sophie Goodwin had 20 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals in the win over Hamilton Heights. And senior Taylor Morose had 13 points, 3 steals, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists for the week, and made some big plays down the stretch against Frankton.
Oh yeah, Miraz was fabulous. I mean, she had a big 3 and he came out with a big steal and a layup that really started that separation there in the fourth quarter.
Herald-Bulletin's Rob Hunt was at Frankton's win against Lapel's win against rival Frankton, as you were. He's going to talk about that and all of Madison County's good basketball so far, right after our weekly honors and our power poll. Lapel has a busy week ahead. They are 2-2. They host 2-2 Guerin Catholic on Tuesday before the big rivalry game against Alexandria on Wednesday. All right, now to our weekly honors. Thanks to Michelle Garmon for joining the Week in Review. Had some technical difficulties. She couldn't stick around. She's working on her deadline for the Tipton Tribune and Elwood Call Leader, but she will be back on Tuesday evening. She will also have a segment in the boys basketball scoreboard previewing the Tipton Tri-Central game. Thanks again to her, as always. All right, Elwood's Courtney Licklider has Elwood 6-0 for the first time in 19 years. That makes her the Central Indiana Sports Report Coach of the Week. Eastbrook senior Mia Bustos had 21 points on 10 of 12 shooting, finished with 16 rebounds, including 5 on the offensive end, plus 6 assists and 2 steals, in the Panthers' 62-28 win over Taylor on Saturday for the Central Indiana Sports Report Performance of the Week. Lapel junior Lanaya Wills averaged 29 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 assists in the Bulldogs' wins at Hamilton Heights and Frankton this week to earn Central Indiana Sports Report Player of the Week. And our Central Indiana Sports Report Team of the Week, despite being down to 2 of its top players, Anderson Prep won its 4th and 5th consecutive games with a 52-28 victory over Indiana Def on Tuesday and a 53-43 triumph over Eastern on Saturday. The Jets are the Central Indiana Sports Report Team of the Week. Now to our power poll. I just described every single one of these teams for you, so no reason to go into detail, but I'm going to count down. First of all, teams that are just on the outside: Eastbrook, Frankton, Marion, Muncie Central, and Anderson Prep. Coming in at number 10, the 6-0 Elwood Panthers. They were not ranked last week. Number 9 is Wapahani. They are 3-0. Number 8 is Yorktown at 2-2. Delta is number 7. Lapel, number 6 at 3-3. At 4-1, Oak Hill comes in at number 5. Sheridan is 3-1 and comes in at number 4. Neither one of those have changed this week. At number 3 is 3-3 Pendleton Heights, last week's number 1 team. Number 2 is Kokomo. They moved up from number 3 last week. They are 5-0. And the number 1 team in the Central Indiana Sports Report girls basketball power poll is the 6-0 Alexandria Tigers. They moved up from number 2 to number 1 this week. Please stay tuned for the Herald-Bulletin's Rob Hunt.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengel.
Welcome to the Central Indiana Sports Report. Rob Hunt of the Herald-Bulletin. Rob, Alexandria is 6-0, Elwood's 5-0, Anderson Prep is 6-2, Liberty won its first game. Frankton Lapel just played a classic on Friday. Good times in Madison County.
It's been a very intriguing opening part of this basketball season for sure. Alexandria, not a surprise. Elwood, 5-0,
No.
pretty maybe catching some people off guard.
You think?
And APA, and I'm glad you mentioned APA. There's a team doing what they're doing with 2 of their top 3 players not playing yet.
That's correct. And pretty impressive results.
And they're positioning themselves as a clear-cut favorite in their sectional, which would be historic for the Jets.
Yeah, and incredible start. And we didn't, we'll talk about Pendleton Heights as well. That's a good team. Took a really tough loss on Friday. So.
Yeah, their schedule's no joke. I mean, it really is. And I mean, they play tough games every week, time out, and that's not going to change this week. I know they have Mount Vernon later in the week, which is always a tough Saturday afternoon. That's a tough time slot too to play in the afternoon, and they seem to play that every year on a Saturday afternoon. So that'll be a tough one later this week for the Arabians.
Well, let's start with Frankton and Lapel. Tell us what you saw on Friday.
I saw we talk about surprises. I mean, this is the time of the year where we get, the top part of the season anyway, where you get some surprises. And, I wasn't sure what to expect from Frankton. When you graduate players like Emma Sperry and Amaya Collins, like they did last year, those are 2,000-point scorers, both playing college basketball. You weren't sure what to expect, and that team played very well together. They played pretty solid defense. Emma Key shot the lights out, especially in the first half. Keeping with her family name and top to bottom, they just played hard. They played hard, and right down there was they actually had the lead with just a couple minutes left in the game, and then there was about a 15-second stretch. Lapel got 3 straight turnovers, converted them into 7 points, and that was the ball game. Very impressed with Frankton. That was my first look at him.
Well,
Lapel is still kind of finding their way a little bit, but they go on the road and get a tough win.
Well, Jeff Bates' teams are going to play hard, and they're going to get better.
Yeah, and it's a Frankton Lapel thing. I mean, it's a cliche, and that's how a cliche becomes a cliche. When it's a rivalry like that, you do throw the records out or the expectations. You just, none of that matters. It's those two teams. Those kids know each other. A lot of times they're actually friends, away from the court. But it's Frankton versus Lapel. It's school pride, and that's a big time rivalry. And Frankton gave it all they could. I mean, those are two teams that could face each other maybe a couple more times this year. So. And with a lot more on the line in those later events, but
Right.
Lania Wills just continues to do her thing. She had a huge night for long stretches of that game. She was carrying the Bulldogs, and I think that's something that and I think Coach Newby and that team knows it. They've got to have a second player who's going to consistently be a scoring threat, and I don't think they've quite found that yet. They've got candidates. They've got kids who can do it. But nobody's really doing it yet, and I think that's something that team is going to have to figure out over the next couple months.
Well, if the end of the game was any indication, maybe it's Taylor Morose made some really big plays down the stretch.
That's a kid who can do it. I mean, she, I believe it was her freshman year. She set the school or the program JV record for 3-point shots made. I mean, she can shoot it. She's a tremendous athlete. We see her play softball and volleyball as well. And I think she's a candidate. Layla Dawson's a candidate. She's a sophomore, missed most of last year with an injury. She's got a lot of talent. Sophie Goodwin is another multi-sport athlete who can really shoot it. They've got candidates, kids who can step up. It's a matter of getting some confidence. Maybe one of those kids has a 14, 15-point game, and that kind of gets them going. And they're all capable of doing that. But Taylor Morose would definitely be a solid candidate to do that because she could really shoot it.
In the pregame, Michelle Garmon and I talked about Lapel and Frankton, and she said she thought they were two pretty even teams, but Lapel has Lanaya Wills, and that'll be the difference. And she was absolutely right, wasn't she?
If the Lapels in an even matchup, Lanaya Wills will be the difference maker, and I think we've seen that over the last several years. The last couple of years she's been there. I think about those county championship or tournament wins against Pendleton Heights. Usually she's the difference, even though going against Casey Warble, just Lanaya Wills is at another level. And we've seen that against Alexandria in that sectional in the last couple of years. If it's an even matchup otherwise, she's going to be the difference maker.
And she's been proven that she can do about anything because she played a little point guard the other night.
She's handling the ball more. She stepped out and hit a 3-pointer, which becomes not fair at that point if if she's going to go out and do that. But she's so talented. I mean, and really still growing into the game. I mean, she's still just a junior. That's hard to believe. I mean, she was so good so early, and she's not the first kid to do this. But when you get a kid like that, and they hit the ground running immediately. You realize you can't believe they've only been there, a couple of years. It seems like they've been there longer. You don't realize you forget sometimes that they're as young as they are, and that's what makes her really special. She's really special.
Hey, Rob, the Elwood Panthers are 5-0.
Man, I'm just thrilled for Coach Licklider and that group. I mean, what those girls have been through the last several years, from the death of Coach Brunemer to having to play a season with four or five kids and not winning a game, and then winning one game, and now here they are 5-0 and winning some games convincingly. They had to battle to win one the other night. Breland Doris and Kendra Salih are just a tremendous 1-2 combination, and they've got some other nice complementary pieces to that puzzle up there. And Coach Licklider, I know she's really had to grind through those first couple of years as a coach and kind of getting the program really restarted. I'm really happy to see them up to a 5-0 start. Really looking forward to seeing them. I've kind of been eyeballing the schedule, and I'm not seeing an opportunity in the next week maybe, but definitely want to go see the Panthers play. I'm really, really, really looking forward to seeing them play.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things is they've done it away from home.
Right, which, those are the hardest games to win. I don't care what the competition is. I mean, you got to get on a bus, and maybe it's a 20-minute drive, maybe it's an hour drive. Some of them have been pretty good hauls. And and Frankfurt. I mean, those are not short drives, and to go on the road and do that, that's not easy to do, and they're getting it done. I got to give props to the Elwood girls.
Absolutely. Same with Anderson Prep. You talked about they're doing it without a couple of players, but they're also, it's not been a killer schedule by any stretch, but they're beating like-sized teams. Eastern is always a pretty good program, rebuilding a little bit, but that's a nice win. Yeah,
and they're mock their schedule if you like, and certainly it's not the toughest schedule in the world, but they're playing the teams they're supposed to play, and they're beating them convincingly. I think they've had a couple close games, but for the most part, they've won those games convincingly. And Ariana Flowers is one kid. Kaylin Orr's injured. Those are kids that tremendous athletes and really good scorers, good rebounders. Flowers can handle the ball really well. So missing those kids is tough, and yet they're still sitting there with that record, winning games on the road, like you said. And Olivia Peoples, she's a difference maker at that level. I mean, when you're 6 foot and you're as physical as she is. She can step out and shoot it. She can handle the ball. There is another difference maker at that, especially at the 1A level. I mean, not a lot of 6-foot kids with that type of body that can play the way she does at that level, and she's making a difference for the Jets. It'll be interesting to see what they look like once they get all their people back, and they get some chemistry and some momentum going into that postseason.
Well, they've won 5 games in a row, and I think the winning streak is about to end. They, of course, host Alexandria on Tuesday. Alexandria is 6-0 and has looked every bit of 6-0, haven't they?
They've looked really sharp. I think it's another team, and I talked with Coach Hosier about it. He knew those first few games weren't necessarily the meat of their schedule, but they go to Delta and they get a win there. Not necessarily the strongest program, but maybe on the rebound a little bit. And then they go to Yorktown, which that was a talented team. They've got some impressive players.
Yeah, young
Well
but
coached.
talented. Yeah,
Coach Margie does a great job, coaching.
absolutely.
We saw her at Monroe Central for years, and that was a test on the road, and it was close for a while, but Alexandria prevailed. And go backing up a little bit, what we were talking about with LaPel needing to find that second scorer. I think that's kind of been the knock on Alexandria the last couple of years. Jacqueline Hosier goes out there, and she's so tremendous. She's so special. But you need a second consistent threat. I think somebody that the other defense has to think about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Lily Harp is that person. I think she's kind of flirted with it before in the past. She's averaged, at that 8 or 9 points per game average. She's scoring over 10 a game. Had a really big game against Yorktown the other night on the glass. She's a great passer. She handles the ball. She could be that other. And don't get me wrong. They don't need somebody else to score 20, 25. Jacqueline could do that on a bad night. She can do that. But giving the defense something else to think about, I think, is going to be big. I have conversations I've had with Coach Newby when LaPel plays them, they just try to wear Jacqueline out because they're not really that threatened by anybody else on the court. I don't think that's the case right now. With Harp, they got Kylan McFall is a kid who could really shoot it, by the way, and is not right now. She's not shooting the ball well. When she gets going, when she heats up a little bit, look out. She can be dangerous.
Looks like it's going to be a big season for Alexandria. Let's talk a little bit about Pendleton Heights. Had a lead the whole game against Greenfield Central, lost it at the end. Had a lead most of the first half against Lawrence Central, very impressive. Lost it at the end, probably nothing to be too concerned about, right?
Not at this point of the season, no. I think they're obviously way more upset about the Greenfield loss, so that's a conference game, and they wanted to win that conference, which kind of makes this game this week against Mount Vernon even more important.
Right.
Because you got to figure Mount Vernon is one of those teams that's going to be in the hunt. They are every year. Casey Werfel's doing what she does. Ada Hupfer's having a nice year. Olivia Jones is off to a strong start. That's a team that has multiple weapons. And they play a tough schedule again. I mean, Westfield is no joke. Lawrence Central, Greenfield, that whole conference is top to bottom is pretty good. They will be tested by the time we get to the end of the year, and most of the teams they play in sectional they're going to see during the regular season because that's a high percentage of that sectional is conference. So it'll be interesting to see what they look like at the end of the year. I think that's Coach Rogers has a deep and talented team over there. It'll be interesting to see what they look like at the end of the year.
Hey, Rob, what you got coming up this week? I assume you'll be at Pendleton Heights on Tuesday.
Yeah, the boys kicked their season off this week. The traditional Thanksgiving week start to the season. Tuesday, I will be at Pendleton, right? Anderson is at Pendleton this year to get the season started. Always a fun one. We make assumptions the last few years that Anderson's by far the better team, and that usually is much more of a battle than we assume. I mean, it's kind of like the LaPel Franklin thing. I mean, it's a rivalry. These kids know each other. It's gonna be a battle. Both teams are well coached. Both teams have great talent, and it's start of the season. Nobody really knows kind of what to expect. For them, I mean, you kind of have an idea, but until you put the kids on the court, you don't know. So that'll be open this season for the boys. And Wednesday, speaking of those girls, LaPel and Alexandria game, which usually means a lot more at the end of the year. they're gonna meet Thanksgiving Eve, so that'll be fun
Big
to
one.
kind of see where they are at this point.
And I think all the media is going to be there because it's the only game of the night.
It is. I think. Excuse me. I think there's a game at Shenandoah. Daleville will be at Shenandoah, so that'll be a fun one to we'll be covering as well.
That's right.
And then later in the week, LaBelle Franklin boys tip it off, and that's always a fun one. This one will be at LaBelle, and high expectations for the Bulldogs this year. The Judge brothers both have had stellar careers, and this could be a year that maybe they do some damage in the postseason. But they're friends from Franklin. I'll have something to say about that. That's a pretty good team too. Joey Wright leads that offense. Pretty good matchup there that first week.
All right, Rob. Can't wait for the boys too, but it's been a lot of fun covering the girls so far. Of course, you've got a lot going on in Madison County. Kokomo has looked great, so that's going to be in the
That's right.
Indians get to play Kokomo pretty soon, so that'll be
Yeah,
interesting. It's been kind of a rough start for Anderson, but there's some wins coming.
I would think so. They do have a player out injured, so that maybe they'll be better when she gets back. Obviously the boys are going to get a lot of the attention this week, but we're gonna stick with the girls as well. We got a lot of great storylines going. Wrestling, certainly. We've got some girls making some noise in
Yeah,
that
you've had a lot
sport.
of fun with those girls, covering those girls
Yeah,
wrestlers.
Riley Thomas and Maddie Marsh both did very well this weekend down at the Clinton Prairie invite. The Franklin boys had a great day. They opened their season. They were at the Taylor invite and went undefeated. So Daleville had a strong day in their own invitational. So lots of other stuff going on. Swimming gets going for real this week, and it's a busy time, and we'll try to get to as much of it all as we can, and we're gonna have fun trying. That's for sure.
Nobody does a better job of it than the Herald-Bulletin, that's for sure.
Yeah, we certainly try our best. We appreciate the support.
Thanks again to Rob for always being willing to join us, and to Michelle for being so helpful. The podcast wouldn't be what it is without Michelle. Also, thank you to Elwood head coach Courtney Licklider, Yorktown head coach Leanne Bargy, Kokomo head coach Haley Peckinpah, and Tipton head coach Leela Gilman for joining the Central Indiana Sports Report. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go like, subscribe, or follow at whatever podcast host you prefer. Also, we're on YouTube as well now. It would help us out a ton if you would tell a friend, and please go rate our podcast 5 stars. If you don't think it's worthy of 5 stars, keep your opinions to yourself. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media.